Most reps stop multi-threading the moment one of those threads catches fire. One of those threads goes, Eureka! I love it! I want it! How do I buy it? And we let the other threads kind of peter out. Why do I have to keep up with these kind of lukewarm discussions left and right of Eric when Eric has just told me a verbal? Let me just play out Eric. Mistake! Mistake because that overconfidence. Well, look who's going to close Eric. Is it possible that Barbara would have been a bigger deal? Is it possible that Barbara wouldn't have asked for a discount? Is it possible that Barbara could have gotten Eric to buy more? Like, you're becoming your own objection. Multi-threading is not an end game. You're not multi-threading to find the winner. Great reps multi-thread their entire life with the account. You're always having multiple conversations independent of one another. You never know when Eric gets fired. You never know when Eric transfers. You never know when Eric quits. You never know when a competitor comes and Eric falls in love with them. And then you'll go, why? Why did I stop talking to Barbara all those months ago? Oh yeah, my overconfidence. You know, here's the thing. We talk so much about self-confidence being such a critical element in being good at sales, and I'm certainly a proponent of it. Link in the description on ways we can show off more self-confidence. But if we're not careful, self-confidence can leak into overconfidence. And overconfidence is one of the biggest contributors to missing a forecast more than just about anything else when it comes to managing a healthy pipeline. So what we're going to do here, we're going to break down the 5 most common ways reps, and I'll include myself in this, can often be our own worst enemy in predicting deals coming in or not. And I'm going to start with that first one, inbound leads. Now, inbound leads, I mean, they're often the biggest source of joy for just about any sales rep on the planet because we kind of skip the first step in sales. We don't have to worry about awareness or we don't have to worry about attention. We already have it. It's an inbound opportunity. But inbound opportunities come with other issues we have to be aware of. And the most obvious one is this. Inbound opportunities are shoppers. They're not buyers. What do I mean by that? An inbound opportunity, you know when someone comes knocking, you're not the only door they're knocking on. No matter how friendly they are, no matter how interested they are, no matter how engaged they are doing this dance with others. And if you're not careful, you can mistaken their interest for being sole interest. The truth is, their interest in you is really their interest in solving a problem. And that's wonderful because that means they probably have a problem they want solved and they want solved quickly. But if you are not addressing inbound leads, specifically with competitive questions and understanding the competitive landscape and really drilling into who they're looking at and why and who's championing which of your competitors and who in the organization is shopping which of those competitors, you're going to wind up falling in love with this friend with benefit only to discover that they'll be leaving you to just become a friend and maybe leaving those benefits to another one of your competitors when they sign that contract. So be very careful. Don't fall in love with an inbound lead until you can get some level of, let's call it monogamy. All right, cool. Let's talk about some other ways, though, that that overconfidence can get in our way. Number 2, confusing a host with a champion. Let me explain what I mean by that. I hear reps talk about champions all the time. We talk about champions all the time here on the channel. But, you know, champions are rare. And champions are not things that we create. I've never understood the expression grooming a champion, building a champion, creating a champion. I can't do that. I'm not Dr. Frankenstein. I don't make creatures. I find them. And champions are not built, they are located. Because champions exist prior to our arrival. They're champions before we got there, they're champions while we're there, and they'll be champions when we leave. What makes champions so wonderful is that they have this strength in their role because of who they are independent of us. They're super citizens of their company. They can break rules. They can push things through. And why? Because they put their company first and people in their organization deeply respect and admire and follow them. So they're rare creatures. We're lucky when we find them. We're certainly thrilled when they endorse and evangelize what we're doing. But the main contact that you generally have in your accounts, I generally like to call them hosts. They're critical. They help us navigate. They help us schedule. They give us critical information, particularly on the organization. But just because they're our primary source of info or our primary contact doesn't make them champions. But when we treat them that way, then what happens is we take their word as gospel. Truth is, most of the time, hosts are influencers. Hosts have a real role in the sales process. They have a voice and they have a vote, but they have a vote. They don't have an oversized vote. They can't steer things over their authority. They can't give you more information than they've been allowed to. And they likely have a similar relationship with either other prospects or other competitors to you. So we deeply honor and respect our hosts, but we don't want to weigh their role or their expertise. So use the words accordingly. When we as sales reps start referring to everyone we talk to that's nice to us as a champion, we devalue the expression and we don't really indicate to ourselves and to our management team where the champions lie. You do not have a champion in every deal. You don't. If you had a champion in every deal, you close every deal. The truth is you're going to have a champion in a subset of your deals, and you should be spending the time that you don't have a champion in your deal trying to find one. So that's the second biggest place that overconfidence, the confusion of host to champions, get in our way. Let's go to the third one, though, which I think is probably the most glaring when we are guilty of letting overconfidence get in our way, and that's overvaluing rapport. Now, if you're not new to the channel, you have seen plenty of videos by me talking about the dangers of rapport, and it is dangerous. It's dangerous because when we use rapport as a tool, we don't recognize what rapport is. Rapport is not a goal. The idea of I want them to like me so I can do things. Now think about that when I said it out loud. I want you to like me so I can get you to what? Buy from me? That's pretty ghastly when you think about it that way. It's very controlling. I don't think I like that. The truth is, rapport is not really a goal in life. Rapport is a result. Do good work and rapport is built as a result of the work you've done. But when you start to incorporate rapport as a purpose, it's pretty fleeting, and it's also pretty transparent in what you're doing. When we start thinking about rapport as like bonus points in advancing the deal, then what you're really saying is my personal ego, my personal personality is actually contributing to this deal advancing. You're basically taking yourself and inserting it into the calculus of the deal. Now, what sales technique do you know of that you, the person, the salesperson, gets inserted into it? I don't know of one. In fact, I'd argue I'm pretty much insignificant in the deal. The deal's about the customer. The deal's about the prospect. The deal's about the pain. The deal's about the problem. The deal's about the solution. The deal's nothing to do with me. And although rapport is fine, and although the pleasantness of having a good relationship with your prospect makes sense to me, the idea of valuing that as important in closing, this deal's going to close because she likes me, I think that's misguided at best. So although we want to value rapport as an indicator of some level of strength in the relationship, we don't want to overvalue it and have it color our ability to forecast. So I think this is probably the biggest challenge. So when and I even argue that if we build too much rapport, it might actually have an adverse effect. And think about that too. You build too much rapport, they might have a problem telling you no when the answer is no. They might sugarcoat the no. They might not tell you things you need to hear because they don't want to hurt your feelings. They might start to ghost or avoid you because they don't want to deal with the conflict because they've liked you so much through the process. I'd rather hear the truth than hear happy disguised no's. You see what I'm saying? So rapport, we want to be careful with that, and we certainly don't want to overvalue it. So that's a very important one too. Let's keep going. Two more that I want to discuss. You know, when people ask me, what's the most important element to qualification? If I had to pick one. For me, it's timeline, because I do think timing is probably the biggest source of movement or of action for most people. The timing of things. It's not necessarily always the goal or the want. The want and the need have to be there, but the timing tends to kind of override it. What the mistake that a lot of reps make is they think about timing in terms of when is the customer going to buy this. So they phrase their questions and they frame the opportunity around timeline on the deal. And this gets perpetuated all the way through the management and executive teams of the sales org. So the manager says, what's the estimated close date? When do you anticipate they're going to sign? When is this coming in? And this goes all the way up to the director and the VP and even the CRO, head of sales, CFO, CEO, board. What's the forecast? When do you anticipate this deal closing? When did they say they will sign it? Now here's the problem with all of that. It's too narrow. That is a narrow look at timing. And I would argue it feeds into overconfidence, because what happens is that timing structure is going to support the rep's questions. The rep says, when do you think you're going to make a change? When do you think you're going to buy this? Well, we'd like to get this wrapped up by the end of quarter. So immediately now the rep has a significant date in their mind, end of quarter. Let's call it September 30th. So now the rep is all gung-ho on this 9/30 date. So the rep is now going to feel confident as things start to advance and making that 9/30 date possible. And if that 9/30 date looks like it's in doubt, the rep will turn on a ton of urgency and gas to try to self-correct and maybe get it back on the rails. And if they're successful, the 9/30 date looks better. And then you wind up starting to correct and fix and go back and forth and try to, if you want to use a sailing analogy, try to tack that boat against the wind to try to get into that 9/30 date. Well, here's the problem. That 9/30 date was made up. The customer made that date up. There's no reason they have to buy on that date other than answering the question of the rep, and it's just a sensible date. The timeline that matters is the timelines that are already on the customer's diary prior to your question. It's not when do you want to buy this, Joe? It's what are the most important dates on your calendar this quarter, Joe? Independent of this. What are the dates that are already set, that are in granite, that you have to abide by? Independent of me. Independent of making a change for this project. What's going on with your partners? What's going on with your customers? What's going on internally? What's going on with your board? Tell me about your other budget concerns. Tell me about your partner concerns. Whatever is going on, Joe has dates. And it's our job in sales to uncover the existing dates that Joe has and then connect the dots between one of those dates and buying our stuff. And the idea being, if you want that date, Joe, to be a home run, you should be buying our stuff by this date. And if I am incapable of making a logical connect the dots between Joe's date and our stuff, I gotta wait till that date passes, and I'll call you then, Joe. I'll call you when that date's over. That's where timing is important. So the making too narrow a date or timing discussion generally leads to overconfidence. Because you've been talking 9/30, September 30th with Joe for the last 2 weeks. You've started to believe it yourself. And everyone's shocked when 9/30 comes and goes and they didn't buy anything. And then you've got egg on your face when you're explaining it to your manager, and your manager has egg on her face when she's explaining it to the director, and on we go. Because no one bothered to ask Joe, forget when you're going to buy us. What is going on in your world on 9/30? And does it have anything to do with you buying from us? So very important distinction we're going to make when it comes to overconfidence on dates. And the final one I want to hit on, where overconfidence gets in the way of our ability to manage our opportunities in our pipeline. And all you closers that watch our channel, you already know what I'm going to say. Biggest mistake is single threading. Single threading an opportunity as opposed to multi-threading. It's a very popular expression. It's all over YouTube, LinkedIn, everywhere else. Got a multi-thread, but let's break down what it means. Multi-threading versus single threading. Single threading is threading your dialogue through one primary channel or person. Multithreading is having multiple concurrent strings of dialogue through multiple conversations and channels. But be very clear, multithreading is not talking to many people. If you're talking to multiple people, but it's the same discussion, you having a meeting with 5 people is not multithreading. It's the same conversation times 5. That's single threading times 5. It's one conversation with 5 people in the room. But if you had 5 one-on-ones, oh, congratulations, you just multi-threaded the deal. That's 5 one-on-ones, that's multi-threading. The reason why it falls under the idea of overconfidence killing a deal is that this is classic. Sales rep may multi-thread early, most reps stop. Most reps stop multi-threading the moment one of those threads catches fire. One of those threads feels really good. One of those threads goes, Eureka! I love it! I want it! How do I buy it? And we let the other threads kind of peter out. Why do I have to keep up with these kind of lukewarm discussions left and right of Eric when Eric has just told me a verbal? Let me just play out Eric. And then maybe I'll go back to the others for an upsell or a resell or a cross-sell, but let me just finish with Eric because this guy's hot and ready to go. Mistake! Mistake because that overconfidence. Well, look who's going to close Eric. Is it possible that Barbara would have been a bigger deal? Is it possible that Barbara wouldn't have asked for a discount? Is it possible that Barbara could have gotten Eric to buy more? Like, you're becoming your own objection. You've just said no to the other 4 people you were talking to so you could focus on Eric. Overconfidence led you to, you started with multi-threading. Multi-threading is not an end game. You're not multi-threading to find the winner. Great reps multi-thread their entire life with the account. You're always having multiple conversations independent of one another. You never know when Eric gets fired. You never know when Eric transfers. You never know when Eric quits. You never know when a competitor comes and Eric falls in love with them. And then you'll go, why? Why did I stop talking to Barbara all those months ago? Oh yeah, my overconfidence. And there you have it. Overconfidence is not difficult to fix when you recognize it's a self-enforced error, but we broke down some of the places where it can happen. Well, where do you see it happen? If you're honest with yourself, and we talked about that in our previous video about that Harvard study, check it out in the description. Harvard study says it, you know, this sense of ego, which is so powerful for a sales quality, but it also gets in our way. What are some of the ways that you've seen yourself kind of be your own worst enemy? I just gave you 5 places. Maybe you've got a few, but once we recognize them, well, then we can fix them. So let's stop with the friends with benefits. As much fun as that might be in a summer night down on the Cape, we've got real work to do. And we're going to do that work by keeping ourselves honest and keeping our prospects honest and making sure we do what we always do. Keep it happy, keep it fun. Happy selling, everybody. See you in the next video.